Good morning. Um, Today I'm going to be reconstructing. Oh boy, I've got morning voice. I just woke up. Today I'm going to be reconstructing my 21.0 North American record FMC mean. I'm really happy with this mean. I uh, I actually recorded this video last night, but I was being really hard on myself because I missed a 21 in on Solve 2. But since then, I've kind of come to terms with that, and um, now I'm doing some recons. Overall, I'm really happy with this mean. I'm really happy with how I performed. I think I did a better job than average of being willing to throw away DRs that weren't giving anything. Like, I think I checked like at least 3 or 4 DRs pretty well during each solve. Um, Except maybe the first. The first one kind of had a bit of a standout DR. So this is the first solve. It was a 20, and it used a 4B20 EDR. But here's the solution. So I did EO on the UD axis, and as you can see, there are 4 bad edges, and they are here, 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 and here. And this is not the best 4 bad case because there are only a couple ways to get EO in 4 moves. But the one I ended up going with was F and then L to bring 3 of these edges onto this D face, and then F to bring the last edge onto the D face, and then a D move, which solves EO. It makes a block, and it also makes a 4C2E RZP on this axis. So there are 4 corners misoriented, 1, 2, 3, 4, and also 2 edges. And this case can give some pretty good stuff. And also, I didn't actually trace ARM for this, but if I did trace ARM, I would have seen it was the 4C1E, which is one of the best cases because it's just a UD, or I guess a BF away from JZP on the inverse. So if you switch, here's what it looks like on the inverse, and of course B prime F prime to get JZP, and it's just 3 moves away from a trigger. So there are 2 ways to do this trigger. There is R prime F2R, which makes DR, and there's also L prime U2L, which also makes DR. And I actually checked R prime F2R first. I thought this would give the better solution because there's more blocks. Because I mean, it's not by too much, but it just the DR just like looks a little nicer, you know, like you got more blocks. But it was actually L prime U2L that ended up giving the 20. Let's see. So I found this 20 with bounding, although it was a little lopsided because I mean, I didn't really have to check much. The solution was so obvious that like I didn't really need to do much bounding at all to find it. But here it is. Oh, by the way, this is, in case you're wondering, this is a 4B20E DR in 9, I believe. Yeah, DR in 9. So now switching to the inverse, it's set up directly into F prime U2F to solve corners. So if you do an F move, that will solve, what am I trying to say? This will bring the DR down to 1/4 turn 4C4E, and then if you do a quick NIST trace, you'll find that the bound is 1 plus 4 plus 1 plus 1. So 1 plus 4 plus 1 plus 1. Oh, that's really good. That's 7. So this has a bound of 7, and it's kind of clear to see why. If you switch to the inverse again, it's just D2B to HTR, which is an HTR in 12, which is really silly. This actually didn't end up giving the 20. D2B looks fine, but the best I could find was an E slice in 21. But if you do an R2L2, so just like an M2 basically, which cancels a move, so it only adds 1, and then U2F, that's an HTR in 13, which is just a different case. And as you can see, it's pretty close to being solved. Like if you do an F2 D2 B2, then it just leaves 3 edges left plus the E slice. And since, you know, there's obviously going to be some crazy insertion with the last 3 moves being B2, D2, F2, and of course F2, and you can, the last move was an F, so the F2 doesn't really add a move. And then you can just do like an S move to just misalign this E slice, and then do that, and finish off the E slice like this. And the B2 doesn't cancel with the inverse, but the last move on the inverse was an F, so it like basically does, because if you widen either if you either widen the B2 or the F, then you get an E slice in 18 moves. And when I saw this, I was shaking in my boots, because I was really nervous going into this attempt. I've been practicing a whole heck of a lot of FMC, and I really wanted to get sub 22. And well, this was a bit of a shocking find. E-Slice did give +2, which is a little bit unfortunate, but what can you expect with a wacky, like 9-move E-Slice with a 3E insertion in the middle? Like, it's like +2 is fine for that. But yeah, very happy with this solve. Me and Krish and Chris all found this same exact solution off this same DR. We all found it in different ways. I think Krish used just regular HDR, and Chris Chi ended up using blocks to find the 3E and then did an insertion. And I did bounding. So yeah, super happy with this solve. On to the next one. What I learned from the next solve, this solve 2, is that no mean is perfect, and every mean is going to have silly mistakes that you are going to deeply regret later, but there's nothing you can do about it except learn from your mistakes and move on. So this was a tad bit disappointing. There was a 21 available off the DR, which would have given me a 20.33 mean, and I just completely neglected to check it, and it's my fault. But I still think I did fine on this solve. I was kind of like I was kind of in a bit of a rush mode, because the first several DRs I checked did not give anything good. The best I could find was an E-Slice in 24 off of 4A2, which I didn't even insert the E-Slice, but it's likely it would have given a 25. And I was just kind of like panic checking different variations until I found this 23 with I mean, I guess I had time left, but like it wasn't a lot of time. Like I found this 23 with like I think like 15 or 20 minutes left. But anyways, so here's the solution. So if you do a I'm looking at EO on the UD axis. There are 6 bad edges. They are there, where's the last one? Aha, there it is. Here are the 6 bad. The important thing is that there are 3 bad on this U face right here. So if you do a U, 2 of those bad edges disappear and you're left with 4 bad edges. And if you do a quick trace, you will see that the edges end up here. And when you switch to the inverse, there will be 2 different ways to make EO in 4 moves. Here is the EO on inverse. So the one I went with was R prime F2 D to make EO and RZP on this axis right here. And there are several different ways to make DR in 9 moves from here. And they're all 2C4. I think that, yeah, there are 3 variations of this, and I checked all 3. But the one that ended up giving the 23 in the end was U2 R prime to make a sort of JZP setup. and then a U2 to fix the E layer edges, and then an L2, and then an F. And as you can see, this DR is a little bit silly. There's just blocks and blocks and blocks, but it's also, I guess it's also 2C4, so it doesn't really matter that much. But the next thing I did was reduce to 3Q with F2B2R. And this is the point where I missed the 21. If I had thought to check F2R to reduce to 3Q and switched, it wasn't the most findable thing in the world because it used a very strange trigger. It was like not something that I don't even know if I would have found it if I had checked this on the inverse, but who knows. F2R gave the 21, but I did F2B2R because I did a little brain fart and I was like, huh, R makes 2C3, so F2B2R is going to make also 2C3, and F2R is not going to make 2C3 because, well, it's just a move away from like the case that will give 2C3, completely mixing up my subsets here, and yeah, it's a little bit of a skill issue. But yeah, so here's the actual solution. So F2B2R gives 2C3 and switch, and then you can get a short HTR here with just an R move, and then you do the 4B2 case, but I did U2 D2, an E slice, and then an L move, actually an L prime, and the E slice ended up canceling one, so it only added one move, and then a U2, and then that. And as you can see, this HTR looks pretty good. Like F2 U2 D2 creates just everything except for 2E. And there's a pretty easy insertion here, which is R2, which last move is R, so that doesn't add any moves, and then B2, R2, F2, and then R2, and then a U2, D2, and that makes E slice in 23 moves, and the E slice ended up adding 0 moves, so that is a 23. This last solve was so great. I know like the last solve was a bummer, but this solve was like the best solve I've I think this was like the most locked in I've ever been for FMC in my life. I was so locked in. Like before the attempt, I was super intentional. I took care of all of my needs. I made sure to eat plenty of food, drink plenty of water, use the bathroom, stuff like that, to make sure I was fully prepared to take on this attempt. And that's also it's it may seem simple, but I get so nervous during these FMC meetings that I just it's difficult for me to eat sometimes when I'm really nervous about FMC. But someone left some really yummy candy at the venue the day before, so I ate that shamelessly, and it was really yummy, and I still have some left actually. Anyways, so I to just give a little bit of a description of this attempt. I was just absolutely locked into the point where I was doing things faster than I'd ever done before. I wrote 50 EOs or somewhere around there. I didn't check, but somewhere around 50 EOs, and I was completely focused. And then after writing my EOs, I looked at the timer and it said 4.5 minutes, and I was like, I just wrote 50 EOs in 4 minutes. What the heck? I usually can get that done in 6 to 8 minutes. That did continue for the rest of the attempt, and I ended up finding a 20, which I'm really happy with. So here it is. So I ended did I do EO on the UD axis for all 3 of these solves? That's kind of funky. But here 4 bad edges on the UD axis. Yeah, I did. And there are a billion ways to make EO and 4 from here, and they're all really similar and really annoying to check. Um, but I checked them. I checked them all, and a couple of them gave a DR an 8, which was 2C4. So here's the one that ended up giving the 20 in the end. So U2, and now there are 1, 2, 3, 4 ways to give EO in 4 after U2. But which one did I use? F2, R2, D. That makes EO in 4, and it also makes makes RZP. It's a 4C2E RZP, and from here I did what did I do? Oh, I D prime at the end. Never mind. So yeah, there, and then as you can see, it's just one move away from this trigger, and there are 2 ways to do this trigger to give DR an 8. The one that ended up giving the 20 was F L2 F, and then so this is 2C4 and 8, which is really good. I was going into this attempt, I was really hoping to get a 20, and I mean not a 20. I was really hoping to get a 22 for 21.67 PR mean. And then when I found these couple of variations, I was like, oh yes, 22 is totally viable on this scramble. I also had a 10 to 2C3 2E JZP that I checked, which was also I don't actually know what optimal was off that, but I bet it was pretty good. I didn't end up finding much off of it though. Anyways, back to the actual solve. What I did here is an L prime to reduce to what is this? 2C3, and then D2L makes 4B2 2E. And then what did I do? And F2 to make this bar right here, and then D2, and then to finish HTR, you do L, U2L, and this is an HTR in 16 moves. And then the HTR doesn't look too great, but like if you do a U2, it leaves 2E 2E in 17 moves, and I was like, holy crap, this is really good. This might give my 22. And for some reason, I thought this was 2E2E in 18 moves. So when I found the insertion, I was like, yes, I found an E-slice in 21. So I thought I'd found an E-slice in 21 and guaranteed 22. Because E-slice +1 is kind of not for granted. It's kind of guaranteed for a 4QDR. But then when I actually wrote down the solution, I realized that it was actually 2E2E in 17 moves, and so that was a bit of a shocker. But anyways, I'm just gonna show the insertion real quick. U2 F2 R2 D prime, L F L2 F makes DR, and then LD2 L prime. Oh no, L prime D2 L, and here at this point I inserted an 8 move 2E2E alg. So this is the 2E2E alg. It's like the only algorithm in FMC that's like actually useful. But I ended up the normal one is like with R moves, but this one's mirrored with L moves. So L2 U2 F2 L2 F2 U2 L2 F2, and it swaps these two and these two. So right here, you can actually kind of just see how it kind of flows into the solution. So L2, U2, F2, L2, F2, and you can see you don't even have to finish the alg. You can just like do that, and that makes E-slice in 20 moves, and E-slice added 0, luckily enough. So when I found this, I was very happy. I honestly did not think I would. I did not think this was NAR. I mean, I knew that 21.0 was NAR, obviously, but I was like 100% convinced in my head that Krish would find a 20 because the scramble was so good, and he is bonkers good at FMC. And So I was like, yay, I got NAR 2. That was what I thought. But Krish ended up finding a 21, and we both tied it, which is so wonderful. I'm really glad that me and Krish both tied it together, and I'm glad it didn't come down to the wire with with one of us breaking it and the other one missing out. Anyways, even though Solve 2 was a little bit yikes, you know, I'm still very happy with the numbers I put down at this competition. It, like, I kind of, I'm very happy to get a record that isn't an FFC single, because it kind of, I don't know, like, I feel like the single is a bit of a fluke, and this one was not. I mean, I guess a little bit since the scrambles were like absolutely goated, but but you know, I'm really happy to get like an average NAR. And I have a bunch of memes coming up, so maybe sub 21 soon. Who knows if the scrambles are nice to me. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.